Okay, so for this week's project, we're going to be taking a look at this Kenwood KX-1030 Cassette Deck. Obviously a 1970s model unit, beautiful silver face, key type operation. This unit belongs to a friend of mine. He has several tape decks, but asked me to see if I could get this one up and going for him. He really likes the way that this one looks. Said it was working at one point and then all of a sudden kind of quit. So I'm not sure what we're going to find. I would imagine belts and of course all the inner wheel drive tires, which I'm sure there's probably more than one in this. Probably nice and glazed over from being in the unit for 40 years. So not real sure. We'll take the top off, we'll have a look, see what we can find out about it for him. This week's intro music, we're listening to Ozzy era Black Sabbath. And although I do really love those two albums with Ronnie James Dio, those first two I should say, the Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules album, I would say that this is probably my favorite song with Ozzy as the front man of Black Sabbath, Snowblind. So let's listen to a little bit of this from their Volume 4 album and then we'll get started on the Kenwood. All right, let's pick back up and have a look at the front of the unit. Very basic in operation. I didn't catch the fact that it's actually a 3-head model, which makes this even more interesting to me. We have a manual power switch and of course key type controls for the transport, record, rewind, play, fast forward, pause, and stop. The eject is done by pushing on the door and it's supposed to just nicely and slowly open up, but it's not doing that. Probably something gunked up. Let's have a look down inside there. Pressure roller not looking as bad as I would think it would have looked. Mechanism seems to be moving okay. Couple of very nice needle VU meters, input controls for mic and line. We do have a bias adjustment on this with obviously tape selection for bias and EQ. An oscillator, which probably is going to give you a tone to assist you in setting up your tape for recording. Dolby noise reduction, and of course the monitor switch. And then an output level control. Coming up over the top, I was kind of baffled when I first seen it. I did not see a record playback switch. Figured there'd be one in it, and there is over here on this side. There's a smaller type of switch in there for that. Can't really see it, it's kind of blocked by that mount right there, but there is a small switch in there for record playback switching. And of course the belt is off of it, but unfortunately somebody has changed the capstan motor. That is obviously not the motor that was in this tape deck when it was new. Or if it is, I'd be extremely surprised. It doesn't look like it is. I don't think so. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that is it. But boy, that sure does look more modern than the rest of it does. Nice little power supply board there. Triple fuse protected. I wonder what's down in here. It's just an open cavity, I guess. Yeah, I don't see anything else in there. Very simple. Doesn't look like there's a lot to it. And some Pioneer style switches there. Capstan belt wrapped around the capstan. Probably nice and gooey. So I would imagine that's where the problem started. Okay, well, I think the first thing, I'm going to see if we can find a service manual. I want to confirm that this is the real motor that goes in this. And even if it's not, and somebody put this in here, hopefully it's got enough torque to drive everything in here. And we're not dealing with a problem there. But we'll definitely want to know what size the belts are, see if I have something we can sub in so we can get it moving, find out if it'll work. He said it did at one time, so give me a second for that. We'll do some research and then we'll come back, have a look. All right, we'll pick back up. Having a look at the schematic, found that on Hi-Fi Engine, and certainly the motor does not look to be the one that's in the unit. Doing a little further research, comes up with a picture of the inside of the unit, and it most certainly doesn't look like that. So we do have a substitute motor in it, so hopefully it will drive the mechanics of this with no trouble. The only problem with using a motor from a more modern tape deck from the 90s is that all the capstan and stuff like that is plastic and very cheaply made, and so it doesn't take a lot of torque to drive it, but everything in that is really heavy, so hopefully there won't be an issue. Looking in the PRB book for model KX-1030, we're going to need an FRX 7.7 capstan belt, and then the SCY belts are for the counter. Don't see a tire listed here, but that doesn't mean there's not one in it. We'll just have to get it apart. So let me see what I have in my stash. Maybe I do have one that we can use. We won't leave it in there, but we'll definitely try it. And hopefully this isn't going to be an issue for us. But when I seen this, this looks like it's out of a way more modern, cheapy tape deck. So let's see if we can find a belt and get a belt in it, and then we'll know a little bit more. All right, we're going to pick back up. This is going to be day 2. Put it to bed last night to do some other things, but this morning got the face off of it to get the mechanism out. It's not going to come out. There's no screws from the back. You have to take the front off, and there's some screws here that'll give you access to get the mechanism pushed out the back of it, which there doesn't appear to be very much room there, so I'm not sure how that's all going to go down. Confirming what I suspected all along, numerous tires here, even on the reels. This one has tires on the reels. And the one on the supply side doesn't look too bad, but the one on the take-up side looks a little glossy. You can see the reflection of the metal in the tire itself, so hopefully that's not hard as a brick. I haven't really, messed with it. It feels like it's got a little bit of cushiness to it, so hopefully that won't be a problem. Coming through the back side, again, pretty much what I suspected. There's a couple of idler tires there too that's going to need to be addressed. So it would need some definite preventative maintenance work. All those tires need to be conditioned, and hopefully everything is in good shape. Other than that, it all looks okay. Pressure roller doesn't feel too bad. Pressing on that. But getting this out is going to be another story. So I'm going to work on that for a little bit. It looks, like I said, we have some screws here. We have some screws here. I mean, the idea is just to get this thing out enough to where I can get this bracket off the back of the capstan. And, Unfortunately, I can't even slip another belt on it without taking it off and cleaning it all up, because I did confirm that is goo. If you touch it, it'll smear all over your finger. So I'm going to clean all that shit up before I can even get a belt on it to see if it'll play, or to see what kind of quality we got in Playback. So basically, need to get this out of here. So I'm going to work on that, get it freed up, get it cleaned up, and get a belt on it. Try to get a belt on it. I haven't even looked to see if I have one. Let's see if we can get this thing up and get it running to see what kind of quality that we're dealing with here before we put any extensive time in it. But just on the preventative maintenance side, or on the maintenance side, it needs a lot. I mean, all those tires and stuff is going to need to be cleaned up. Everything is going to need to be lubricated. The reels, of course, will come off. So yeah, I see a lot that needs to be done here. So let me see if I can get the mechanism out of it, and then we'll pick back up. All right, we're going to pick back up, and what I decided to do in the interest of time is not try to get the whole mechanism out, but instead go ahead and get this cleaned up from inside while it's still, attached in the mechanism. And 35 cotton swabs later, I did it. I got it cleaned up. Got the one over here on the other side for the cap stand cleaned up too. And the plan was, from that point, how am I going to get a belt in there? And so I was able to take this loose just enough to get a good enough gap right there that I was able to slip a belt down inside there. And I did find one that'll be fine for testing purposes. And so got it in there. And it looks like a pretty good fit. It slips on there pretty good. It's nice and snug. It's a used belt. Just want to keep in my stash for testing, just for these type of situations. So I think it's going to be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything tightened back up. And to get this plate off, you'll take out 2 screws here. And then there is an actual, like a nut that a spring connects onto that you'll have to loosen up to get that bracket out. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of that tightened back up, and I'm going to get the tape deck routed into the mixer, and we'll do some testing with it and see what we got as far as playback quality. But until we know a lot more about this, I don't want to start tearing the mechanism down too much, just because I don't know anything about the tape deck yet. I don't want to invest that much time until I know more about it and find out about what my friends' level of interest in having full-on service done to this is. So let me go ahead and get this button back up. We'll get it routed over into the mixer, and we'll start testing it. All right, coming back in. Got our capstan plate mounted back. Got the real dry belt put back on it, and just doing a little testing just to see where we're at on the torque. The rewind torque is really weak, but the fast forward torque is nice and strong. So I would say the idler tire that transfers the torque over here would definitely be probably the source for that, because this tire looked glazed when I first looked at it, but it's doing its thing. So mechanically, we are not in any kind of threat range of it eating the tape up. We'll start off, we'll look at our first test tape here. It's going to be our bench tape King's X Faith, Love, and Hope album. Let's see what this is all about. It's definitely fast. There ain't no doubt about that. Well, let's take a look at the speed with a frequency counter. If anything, I'm glad to hear that it's fast versus slow. There was definitely a concern in my mind about that motor being strong enough to drive that heavy capstan. Those motors that originally came in these old tape decks were pretty bulky. So let's move this over and see if we can fire up our frequency counter and have a look at the speed. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see. We'll use our speed alignment tape for that. We'll probably need to turn this down in the mixer so it's not blowing you out. We'll need a cable for that. We'll just dump it out of the right side. That should be good enough. Yeah, I would say that's definitely a little fast there. We only want 1,000 and we're at 1108 higher. Let me see if I can tweak it down some. These motors have a hole in the back for the speed control, just like any of the other ones do. Let's see what we got here. It's going up. Let's see if we can come down. See if we can get it in the range of 1,000 here. Yeah, I'm going to say that's good enough. I'm good with 1,001 for this with a used belt and a non-OEM capstan motor. So we'll get this put back in place and we'll fire it back up again and we'll listen to it, see if it sounds a little bit better. Plug our line going into our mixer back up. Get that out of the way. Turn our mixer up a little bit. And let's see what we get this time. Oh yeah, it's definitely better there. Yeah, as far as the playback is concerned, it don't sound that bad. When I'm listening to this as I'm making the video, I have a small computer speaker hooked up to the mixer just for monitoring, so I can't really hear it until I actually go back and play the clip back to see what the quality is. But it looks, or it sounds pretty good from this point anyway. Let's turn on the Dolby. Well, I'm going to say that it sounds all right to me. I'll have to play the clip back and really listen to it to get a real good idea, but from what I can hear coming out the monitoring speaker over there, it sounds all right. So I guess my, rambling on about the motor not being correct and all of that was kind of unfounded. It's obviously working, so, and the speed is able to be adjusted to where it needs to be, so. Meters seem to be working real nice. It's always nice when one of them's not stuck and you have to take it apart and fix it. All right, well, we obviously made it past the playback test with no trouble. Only thing that comes to mind is the very weak rewind torque. So of course that would all need to be addressed. So we go ahead and we'll do some record testing with it. We'll set that up and get a signal going into it and see what the record quality of the unit is, and find out from that point how much interest my friend has in pursuing getting this repaired. Getting it repaired to a couple of different standards. We got the standard of, if it was my tape deck, this is what I would do to it. Or we have the standard of, hey, I put a used belt in it, it's working, good luck, bring me a 12-pack. So we'll find out what his real interest is once we know what the record quality of the deck is. But, you know, it is working, so. Okay, we're gonna pick back up. I've already started the process of doing a little test recording with the unit and found that there is an issue on the left channel in the record mode. The unit has some distortion, very low, you know, fine distortion in it. And the way I have it going right now, the tape is in record mode and the machine is in tape mode, which means we're actually monitoring what we're recording as we're recording it. And you can hear there's quite a bit of distortion in this. And what we'll do is we'll make a switch from the one channel to the other. Our left channel is the one we're having the problem with. So let's switch it over to the right channel. And of course everything sounds pretty good there, no trouble. So let's switch it back. And one thing I noticed is after running some of the caps in the record switch or record amp circuit, I did find that the issue is with one of the low value caps right down there by the Dolby IC. And instead of just taking the cap out, putting a new cap in, what I've done is just parallel jump one over the top of it to see if that sound cleared up, and it did. Let's go ahead, we'll put the camera on top of the magnifier and we'll look at that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump a cap over the top of that one, and we should see a greatly improved picture. Excuse me, sound. Greatly improved sound. And just by jumping that in there, it just jumps right up, improves immediately, letting us know that we're definitely on the right track for this. No question about it. We'll move it. We go right back to the distortion in the sound. So not only does he have an issue with some of the mechanical things, but there's also an electronic problem that's going to have to be addressed. So, and that's the reason why I wanted to get a belt in it. I wanted to get a belt in it so I could confirm that we had usable record and playback audio. You know, because if I give a price on just fixing the mechanics of it, get that taken care of, only to find out that I also have a problem with the playback or the record, then I haven't quoted enough. And so I always want to make sure that I'm, you know, giving an accurate diagnosis and an accurate estimate. That way I don't spend more time, you know, for a smaller amount of money. So I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for this one. Appreciate you guys watching the video for the Kenwood KX-1030 Cassette Deck, and we may or may not see a part 2 for this. So just depends on you know, how much he wants to invest in. But again, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you next week for the next video.